Hello, friends, and welcome back to Motivation Mondays on A Peculiar Project. I'm Fritz. The last 2 weeks, we talked about procrastination and why we do it, and in particular, how to stop. This week, I want to talk about doing the work to reach your goals. On this channel, I will mostly be talking about becoming a writer, in particular, working on novels and short stories. But these tips do apply to any creative pursuit, really. And this week, I want to talk about how writing is very similar to athleticism. I know that may seem counterintuitive at best, but hear me out. So, if you want to become a basketball player, say you want to make the team, so you are getting ready for that, you're going to practice dribbling the ball, learning to bounce the ball and control it. That's dribbling. So you're going to dribble the ball, you're going to learn to dribble between your legs, you're going to learn to dribble while you're running. You're also going to practice passing, your passing game. So you're going to learn how to pass the ball to other players, how to pass the ball while running. You're going to practice your shooting game. So you'll practice layups, both left and right. You'll practice throwing from the free throw line, the 3-point area. You'll practice shooting while running, shooting while on the move. You'll practice pivoting, all these different skills. Parallel to all that, you'll be conditioning yourself as an athlete. That means doing cardio so that you have the stamina to make it through the game. That means probably some weightlifting and other strength building exercises to make shooting the ball easier and more efficient for your body. There are a lot of things that a person does to become an A-level athlete. And my point is that all of those skills are practiced. You're constantly practicing over and over and over again. Even when you learn how to make the shot, you're still practicing making that shot so that those movements become automatic when you're under pressure. Pressure of the time clock, pressure of defense, etc. It's the same thing with writing. You get good by practicing a lot. If you want to be a published author, you'll have to practice writing stories to see what you're good at and what needs work. Then you'll do writing exercises, developing characters, infusing scenes with tension, developing a plot, describing settings, people, objects, the weather. All of these things take skill in order to do them well. You'll learn how to develop a meaningful plot. You'll learn where the best place to begin a story is and how to end a story. All of these things get better with practice, but you don't know what you're good at and what you're not if you haven't done it. So sitting around thinking about writing doesn't make you a writer. You have to do the work. I'm not saying this to make it sound difficult. This should be good news because what it means is that writing is a skill you can learn. It's not something you're born with. This is perhaps counterintuitive because we don't study the arts much in our culture anymore. So we don't understand how very much work goes into becoming skilled in the arts. And it really is a skill as much as it is just wild creativity. The thing is, if you want to become a writer, you have to do the work. And we will talk about this more in another series, but I want to hit on it strongly today. Because it follows really well after our discussion of procrastination, that you have to stop getting tied up in the excuses and the thoughts and start working. So how do you do that? One way to do that is to find writing prompts and just do one every day. You don't even have to finish, but just the act of sitting down and doing that, working on an idea, helps your brain start learning how to translate ideas into words on the page. And then another thing you'll want to do eventually is find a feedback group or a critique group. A feedback group can help you understand what's really working for you and what you might want to practice. And there are many, many, many books on how to write well, so you can find one geared toward the skill you need to improve the most. Something that some people find difficult about all this is learning to set aside that time, especially if you have other commitments like a family or a stressful job or you're in school. It can be difficult to start this as a new habit. And like I said before, I'll talk about this in another series probably on building habits. Right now, we've been talking about breaking down the bad habit of procrastination, but we want to replace that with the good habit of taking action. And so we'll talk about button share quite a bit on this channel because that is how stories get written. In the beginning, it can feel difficult to make that time for yourself, to set aside time, especially if you have other responsibilities and commitments and an already tight schedule. But the only way that stories get written is by sitting down and writing them and then editing them. So you'll want to practice doing that. And sometimes what that takes is learning to set strong boundaries, learning to convey to others that this is serious and this is your time. And that can be uncomfortable in the beginning. So if you are a people pleaser, or if you find that you are often overcommitted to things that you're not really sure you want to be doing, then that is a sign that you need to learn this skill better, to set boundaries better, and to learn to say no to others. But I want to flip that script a little bit because saying no to others is difficult. Research shows that it's difficult, that people want to say yes more than they want to say no, and then they regret that yes, or maybe do a bad job and harm their reputation. So, thinking about that, you want to learn to set that boundary where you are able to do the things you commit to and do them well. This also means leaving enough time for you to be satisfied with how you've spent your time, and that includes making sure you have time for your creative pursuits. So I want you to think less about this as saying no, learning to say no, and more about learning to say yes. We want to say yes to ourselves. So think about that. Take a moment and think about saying yes to yourself. Do you want to be a writer? Yes. Well, then, are you going to write? Yes. So instead of thinking, oh, I should, think, I'm going to. And then when you sit down to do it, tell yourself, I'm doing it. And be proud of yourself even for taking that first step. We need to learn to ingrain rewards in our own thoughts. I think this can be tricky for a lot of people, but the big thing about battling bad habits and building new ones is that the reward needs to come from us. We are the adults, there's no one else in charge. So we have to be the ones to make ourselves do the things and reward ourselves for doing them. And it can't always be candy. A lot of writers will put a word tracker in their room and track how many words they write a day, and so that can be its own kind of reward. We'll talk about things like that in another video. But for now, what I want to think about is saying yes to ourselves and making sure that we have that time. Schedule a time once a week, once a day, to just sit down and write for an hour. And during that hour, set a timer if you have to get yourself going, and maybe just write in 10-minute sprints. Think of yourself as that athlete again. When you are an athlete, you're practicing all these different skills. So if you go to, like, even if you're in junior high or high school and you go to practice after school, your coach is guiding you through the different skills that you're practicing. But your coach, she kind of has a timeline in her head of how she's going to spend that training session. So maybe it's an hour or two, and she'll set a timer and say, okay, everybody run laps for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Everybody practice basic skills for 5 minutes. Now we're all going to skirmish at the end for 10 minutes. So while you're writing, similarly, especially as a beginner, you can say, I'm going to practice writing a description of this object sitting next to me. Maybe it's a little scarab, right? So how do you describe that? Think about the color, the nuances, the lines, the carving, the material. Maybe you want to describe character. Maybe you want to develop a plot. You can practice these skills in isolation in bursts during your writing session to build those skills. You can also just practice sitting down and getting words on the page because that's a skill as well. Getting the words flowing and getting them flowing when you need them to. So that is a whole lot of information, a whole bunch of tips just sort of jumbled together. I have no idea how many it was, but I hope that this was helpful and I think that this is a good follow-up to the procrastination discussion. So if you like this video, please do like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know what kind of skills you want to develop, if there's a type of video you want me to do next, and I will see you next time.